Welcome to the Face to Face. I'm your host, Genevieve Kyle-Lefebvre. Face to Face is a bilingual series of video recorded here in Coquitlam. We acknowledge that Coquitlam is located on the ancestral and traditional and unceded territory of the Coquitlam First Nation, who continue to care for these lands, waters, and all living things. Today I am with Chris Wilson. Chris is Executive Director at KidSport. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
KidSport, what is that? We hear about it. I even personally have bought a bike from you, but we'll touch on all this a little bit later. First of all, tell me, what is KidSports?
KidSport's a national organization dedicated to making sure that all kids get the same kind of opportunities to play a season of sport. Some people think, well, that's not a big deal, but there's so many families out there that just can't afford to register their kids in sports, and all of the life skills that kids learn through playing sports are life skills that they use for the rest of their lives. And we think that it's just not fair for kids to not have those kind of opportunities because of the family's financial situation. So we are just dedicated to raising money to make sure that we can subsidize their registration fees and make sure that all kids get the same kind of opportunities.
Amazing. So who can benefit from getting help from you, or how does that work?
Yeah, so like I said, it was a national organization. There's provincial bodies, and then in BC there's regional chapters, and so we're part of the Tri-Cities chapter. And families that are struggling financially for a variety of reasons. They could just be constantly struggling financially. They could have, one of the family members could have lost their job. They could be ill. There's a whole variety of reasons why people are struggling. And we have a fairly straightforward application process that kind of relies on Statistics Canada's low-income cutoff range for incomes. And so we ask the families to provide information about, well, first of all, the sports that the children want to play and that sort of thing. But in order to qualify, their income has to be below a certain level. And so it's a fairly straightforward process, and we try to do it as quickly as we can to make sure that all the kids get a chance to play with the rest of the team or the other kids that are doing the sports. And like I say, it's not any typical family situation. It obviously, yes, there are a lot of single parent family situations that benefit from what we do. But you'd be surprised at how many two-income families nowadays are needing to apply to get support. So, and I'm very worried that with the political situation the way it is, it's going to be even more challenging for families. So, we're just doing the best we can to raise as much money as we can so that we can be there to make sure those kids get to play.
Mm-hmm. How many kids per year are you helping right now?
Last year, 2024, it was just over 500, about 520.
That's a big amount
kids.
For locally here in the Tri-Cities, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that works out to almost $200,000 that we gave in subsidies. So it's a lot of money that we have to raise every year. But we're super thankful for a lot of the organizations and companies and individuals and other associations that help us raise money. Yeah, we're very lucky.
Mm-hmm. So how do you raise money?
The main way we raise money, I guess the biggest fundraiser we have is a big, huge used equipment sale that we do twice a year, usually in the first week of September and the first week of March. And we've been doing that for since I think around 2007. Mm-hmm. So it's been a while that we've been doing it, and it's to all of the people that are involved in it, it's a bit of a labor of love. It's a lot of work. But
bringing the equipment together, find a location. Is it every year at the same place?
Yeah, in the September one, we do it at the Poirier Forum in Coquitlam, the big tent structure. And in Port Coquitlam in March, we do it at Riverside Secondary School. And we've been so fortunate to have great partners at the school district and at the city. And, I think so many people see what we're doing and appreciate what we're doing. So we've been very lucky to get support. And so the sales, the families just don't know what to do with their used equipment. So we give them a great reason to donate their equipment. We keep it out of the landfill. We make it really inexpensive for families to try a sport. Mm-hmm. They don't have to invest a lot of money in equipment for a child to try a sport. And we're able to raise a decent amount of money. So that's one of the ways we do it. We have a golf tournament that we do with the school district every May. And then there's, events throughout the year where organizations try to help us raise money. There was a craft beer festival up at Westwood Plateau last week, and KidSport was the charity of choice for that. So again, like I said earlier, we're super grateful for the support that we get from the community, and it's needed more and more every day.
More and more and more. And maybe, as you mentioned earlier, maybe this year there's a lot of action into politics these days, right? And there's a little bit of a mystery what's happening for us, right? We don't know if tariffs are coming. They're here actually, and then when is those tariffs going to impact us? We don't really know when and how, right? So, and then yes, if there's less money for families, there's less money for sports.
Yeah.
And we know sports. When we think about sports, we also think about mental health. I think we all need attention outlet, and our youth, our young, our kids need attention outlet to connect also with their peers and not be able to be part of a team, not be able to have this attention outlet has a huge impact on mental health. I think we can touch on that. Have you seen, tell me a little bit about what's the impact of children not be able to have sports like this, and on our society, what's the impact?
Well, one of the reasons that I'm very passionate about this is when I was in elementary school, my best friend, his name was Dino. They called him Dino. Dennis was his name. But I grew up in Winnipeg, and we were inseparable. And then after grade 6, my family moved to North Vancouver for a few years, and we lost touch because back then there was no email or texting, and so when I went to grade 8 and he went to grade 8, his dad had lost his job, and there was 5 kids in their family, and they all played hockey and ringette, and when the dad lost the job, they couldn't play those sports anymore, and it hit Dino the hardest, and he got involved with the wrong kind of friends, and was drinking and partying and using drugs, and by grade 9, by the time I came back to Winnipeg, he was a completely different person. And one night he was walking home from a party and passed out. Nobody knows for sure, but the thinking is he passed out, and as he was passed out, a car ran over him and killed him.
Oh my goodness.
And I know that if there was a KidSport organization then, that he would still be alive. And I know that's a fairly extreme example, but that's, that's the kind of impact that can happen.
Yes, that is an
right?
impact.
There's a saying that always goes around, join a team or join a gang kind of thing. And, I think it's super important that kids stay active, whether it's in sports or the arts, and they just have to be active. They can't be sitting around, on their phones all day. And that's, again, why we're so passionate about trying to make sure that they get out. I was very lucky. My family could afford to, register my siblings and I in sports, played a whole bunch of sports, and I wasn't very good at anything. Played hockey, soccer, baseball, football. But the one sport I really ended up really enjoying and actually having some success was wrestling. because I was always the smallest person in my class. And, playing hockey to a certain level, it's okay. But once you get past that level, it's pretty dangerous to be the smallest kid on the team. But in wrestling, they have different weight classes. And so being small wasn't a disadvantage for me anymore. And the things that I learned through all of those years of playing those sports are things that shaped my life. They're things that I continue to benefit from every day. And again, there's a lot of kids out there that aren't getting those opportunities to learn those life skills.
Absolutely. You touched on, and it's so true that when you start a sport, when you're a little girl, little boy, right? It's not so expensive. But as you get older, or you get into the more competitive team, like the cost of traveling also, like there's a lot of cost into like being in a team even as a youth, as a teenager, like if you're basketball, is it something also like you guys help with, like all the expenses that it has encountered into this? Because it can go quite far. I'm listening to some of my friends that are playing into soccer and are going to Seattle, they're going to like different places, and I'm like, what, you have to pay for hotel room? Yeah, like how can people afford this, like in this day and age?
Yeah, no, it's extremely difficult for sure. And what KidSport really focuses on is the registration fees, right?
Okay.
And in some cases, with high school sports, the registration fee includes tournaments. But with community sport, it doesn't usually include tournaments and that sort of thing. So, but to get involved in the whole travel and clothing, uniforms and sweatsuits and bags and all that, we try to stay away from that because we can't afford to help that many kids with all of those expenses. And so just by focusing on the registration fees, it makes it a lot easier for the different volunteers in different chapters around the country to be really focused and specific on registration fees. But you're right, and that's the challenge, right? Anybody who's going to excel at a sport nowadays has to come from a family who has some money, right? Because it costs a lot of money to be able to get to that level, regardless of what sport you played, and it's a real shame.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And again, I'm repeating myself here, but I just don't know how come some family can afford it. Like even I just take my example. Me and my husband, we both work. We have two little boys, and the bills are coming pretty fast. And your registration, it's every few months and it doesn't end. And I can see how important it is to have an organization like you helping those families to keep those kids busy. And it's the citizen of the world, right? Okay, so now I'm just curious, which sport is the most popular?
By far, it's soccer.
Soccer, okay.
And that's for a couple of reasons. One, I mean, soccer is just a very popular sport to begin with. It's the most popular sport for participation in most communities. And two, it's a less expensive sport than a lot of others. From an equipment standpoint, you just need soccer cleats and shin pads, and that's it. And so you're not having to pay large, the expenses of renting an arena and that sort of thing. So yeah, soccer is by far the most popular sport.
So I can see why. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So
and we think we think it's a great sport for kids because they're getting a lot of exercise. They are part of a team, so they're learning about teamwork. The season is a fairly long season, so
specifically in BC, right?
Yeah, and they're staying active for a really good chunk of the year. And so from a funding standpoint, we think soccer is just a fantastic sport for a lot of kids.
Last year, we were looking for bike, my family. Me and my husband, we went around and look around a little bit, and I happened to look on Facebook Marketplace, and I saw an ad. And that ad led us to you. And then you explained to us a little bit how KidSport work and how the money we bought the bikes would go for children. And we loved the idea. My husband and I were enrolled. We bought 2 bikes. We even got the kids to pick which color. One was blue and one was like yellow and with some flames on it. And it was beautiful. But they were also really nice bike. They were Trex bike. So do you work with Trek? How does that work? Because there was quite a few bikes there. Is there a program that rotates with them, and then now after this they are passing it to you to sell for kids sports? So how's that work?
Trek has been probably our most amazing partner. Our most amazing partner. They are amazing, and they have a fantastic trade-in program. So if you buy a kid's bike and your child outgrows it, you can trade it in, and they give you usually at least 50% of the value of the bike that you trade in to buy a new bike. But they don't sell used bikes, and so all the bikes that get traded into the Trek stores have to go to somewhere. And so what Trek does is they look for a charity in the community that the stores are in, and they donate the bikes to those charities. And so in the Tri-City area and Maple Ridge and Burnaby, they donate them to KidSport Tri-Cities. And it's just been an absolutely amazing partnership. And it started a year or so before COVID. And what happened during COVID was we couldn't do our fundraisers anymore because it was always a social event, right? Like the equipment sales or golf tournaments or Operation Red Nose. And so we had no way of raising money. But at the same time, cycling became very popular during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
And so they were getting all of these trade-in bikes. And so we were getting all the trade-in bikes. And we were thinking, well, we have nowhere to store all of these bikes and we can't sell them at our sale. And it was my daughter who suggested, why don't you try putting them on Marketplace? And so we did. And it just was super successful, and we can't thank Trek enough for choosing us as a partner in their program, and it really saved us through COVID because that was the one thing that we could do to raise money, and it really made a difference for us. So, yeah, thank you very much to Trek.
No, absolutely.
And to people like yourself who
came and bought the bike.
Bought the bikes, yeah. I don't sell them out of my garage anymore because it was a bit of an impact on my family, and I did it for about 4 years. So now we're just focusing on selling them at our used equipment sales that we do twice a year. So,
well, I really enjoyed that. That's how I found you too. Yeah. So now, if people want to donate, how does that work? Do we go to your website, and what kind of donation do you take? I know you already touched on used equipment, but do you also accept money? Let's elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, so to start with the equipment sales, twice a year we do the sales, and usually for 10 days or 2 weeks before the sales we have an equipment drive. And so at all of the rec centers in the Tri-Cities, so the Port Coquitlam Community Center, Port Moody Rec Center, the Poirier Sport and Leisure Complex, we have bins there to collect equipment for people to donate. But throughout the year, people can donate and get a tax receipt by going to our website and donating through our website.
And what's your website?
Yeah, it's kidsporttricities.ca.
Okay.
Or if you go to just kidsport.ca, you can find our chapter in there. And we are extremely grateful to people who do donate, and we have people that have signed up to become monthly donors, and so every month they automatically donate money, and it's a really important way for us to be able to manage the demand that we're seeing out there, and so we're really grateful for the people that do donate.
Mm-hmm. So you touched on what I'm going to ask a little bit, but I want to elaborate a little bit more. So what is the biggest challenges kids sports faces?
I think the biggest challenge we're facing is ahead of us, trying to meet the demand that will come in the next year or 2 or 3 or 4, depending on the political situation between Canada and the U.S. We want to do everything we can to make sure that kids are able to continue playing sports if they were already playing sports. Families may have been able to afford to register their kids for from the time they were 5 till they were 10, and all of a sudden now, it's just much more difficult, we'd love to be there to be able to support that, to allow the family to continue being involved. And, I'll also say it's not just for the kids, right? It's for the adults too, the parents, right? A lot of the parents that are struggling financially aren't as involved in the community as much sometimes, and for them to be able to have their child play a sport and go to the practices or go to the games or the performances or whatever they're doing, it just allows them to meet new people, expand their network, and gain support, right? They might get help with carpooling, they might get help with childcare, and especially for new immigrant families, coming to Canada. It's a huge benefit for them to be able to get their kids involved, and they just become more involved, and they learn more about the community. They meet new people, and so it's really a benefit to the whole family, and we value that as much as what the kids are getting out of it too.
Mm-hmm. How does the community can get involved to help KidSport Tri-Cities?
Lots of ways that people can get involved. One is by donating quality equipment. Unfortunately, what people think is gently used is a little bit subjective. But so for our equipment sales, we really appreciate the fact that people donate equipment, and we would encourage that to continue. We have a golf tournament every year. Usually it's just with school district people, but sometimes we have people from the general public playing as well. The Operation Red Nose program used to run. Unfortunately, it's not running anymore, so that's not a way of helping. And then, just the donation aspect. Again, we understand it's becoming more and more difficult for everybody. But if somebody's looking for a charity to donate to, or somebody's looking for a charity to maybe leave in their will, we would love to talk with them and help them through that whole process. Because we want to be here for the long term. We want to be sustainable for, as long as it's going to be needed in the community. And it would be great to be able to look at some legacy planning and be able to focus on the long term and make sure that we have this support in place for the long term.
I understand. Can you give us a couple examples of families or kids that you helped, and maybe they went a little further, like quite far into their sport experiences or something like that?
Yeah. Maybe I'll give two examples, and one is just a general example. But we worked with the Coquitlam Secondary Sports Association a lot, and support a lot of students, to play school sports. And I can't remember which year it was, about 4 or 5 years ago. 5 students that got athletic scholarships were students that we had supported for a number of years. And really that's ideally what we want, is for, if a family is in sort of a cycle of poverty, we want to try to break that. And one of the best ways of breaking that cycle is by getting, a university education.
Yes.
And so that year, five students went on to go to university and play the sports that we had funded. So
that is amazing.
Amazing, and it happens every year, and it's just super exciting for us to know that's going to continue. A more personal example, I used to coach soccer, but I never was a very good soccer coach, so my wife took over. But I also coached lacrosse, and there was this family, and their daughter was the same age as my daughter, and they were on the same soccer team and then the same lacrosse team, and it was a single mom, and I think it was 4 kids in that family.
Wow.
And KidSport supported all of those 4 kids for a number of years, and I got to coach one of her children. And her daughter was really nice, but she was very shy, not very athletic, and over the years she just developed this confidence and this sense of leadership. And by the time she was in grade 10, she was the captain of the lacrosse team, and just an amazing leader. And again, it's just an example of the skills that you learn by playing sports and by having that opportunity. She developed into a really confident, mature, successful person. So it was just such a, I was so lucky to be able to see that evolution in her, and it's just a privilege to be able to help that family. But so, and that's constantly happening, right? The families that are benefiting from KidSport, their kids are gaining those life skills and that confidence, and hopefully they're able to continue with it.
That's amazing. It's true. I didn't think about scholarship. Of course, through sports, you can keep playing and also get an education. And if it's a family that is going through certain things or can't pay for, I was going to say tuition, but it's not tuition. It's they can't pay for their registration fees. Of course, maybe university is maybe not in the card at this point. And that is amazing through sports. It's true. You can get scholarship and get a future.
Yeah.
So it's amazing thinking from like planting that seed that you're actually creating amazing opportunity. That's amazing. Wow. Okay.
And there are people that support us now because we supported them in the early days. And now they're adults and they have their own kids, and they realize just how the impact that they playing sports had on their lives. And there's 3 people that support us now that we'd supported back then, and it's just very exciting to see how successful they are, and the fact that they appreciate what happened, and they're continuing to support.
Amazing. So how many years KidSport's been around in the Tri-Cities?
It started as a Coquitlam chapter. I believe it was around 2003. And I got involved in 2004. I was the equipment manager for the Tri-City Female Ice Hockey Association, the Predators, and the NHL Players Association had decided they were going to give a whole bunch of hockey equipment to the KidSport chapters around the country. And so I got a phone call saying, we got this hockey equipment, for kids who might need it. And I'd known about KidSport before because it actually started in British Columbia back in 1993. And it was Sport BC, which is the umbrella organization of all the different provincial sport organizations, and their board of directors, even back then, 1993, were trying to figure out ways to make sports more accessible to all families. And they came up with this concept of KidSport, and I just thought back then, wow, this is great. And so I helped doing some fundraising at the time, and but then my wife and I had kids and got busy, and but then in 2004, got back into it with the Coquitlam chapter. And then by 2006, I think it was, we expanded it to be a Tri-Cities chapter. And so, so it's been in the community for a long time. We want to, unfortunately, it's necessary, but we're ready to be in the community for another 25 years.
So if we go back now, just for the next 5 years, let's say, what's the goals for KidSport Tri-Cities?
Well, we'd like to be able to increase the amount of money we give. Right now, the maximum is $500. So we'd like to be able to increase that. If possible, we'd love to be able to fund 2 seasons of sport. And like I said, with the political situation, just want to be able to meet the demand as things transpire here.
As things are needed, yeah.
There's lots of different opportunities for us to try to raise money. We like to get more volunteers involved to help with those kinds of things, but mainly just trying to keep up with the cost, right? As the costs
And
go
costs
up.
go up also. Everything gets more and more and more, right?
Yeah.
It's more and more expensive, yes.
And like the other part is trying to develop that legacy in terms of people putting KidSport in their will, perhaps, or major donors with providing larger sums of money and that sort of thing, in order to us be able to increase our longevity.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for everything you do, Chris. Keep doing what you do, you and everybody that works with you. And thank you for all the people that are giving their equipment and giving donations. I think we have to say thank you to all of them. And keep shining, keep doing what you do, and keep helping kids play sports.
Well, thank you, and thanks for doing what you're doing. And I just want to really make sure people understand that there's a lot of people behind the scenes that do a lot of work, and we're very fortunate. The equipment sales that we do, we have all kinds of students from the schools around the area that come and help out. A lot of adults come and help out, and it's a huge team effort. Yeah,
like everybody, like school district. That's amazing. Yeah,
it's not just me and
it takes a family, right?
Yes.
To help a family.
Yes, for sure, it does.
Well, thanks again, Chris.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. From the Tri-Cities Community Television and myself, Genevieve, thank you so much for watching us today.